A criticism often made of Protestantism is that since we have no central governing authority for Protestantism at large, there is just no way to have certainty about our understanding of Scripture. Often, Catholic and Orthodox Christians claim that without something like a pope or magisterium, we just can't be certain that our interpretation of any given text is correct. And while that is technically true, in this video I will seek to show how this isn't actually a problem at all. In the rest of this video, I would like us to look at two real-world, everyday examples that we can all relate to and see how these actually support the position of Protestantism. To start, let's look at the discipline of science. Now, science has allowed for a deeper understanding of how the world works and is responsible for all modern-day technological advancements, from things like the light bulb to the surgical equipment that is used to perform open heart surgery. So to say that science has been successful would be even an understatement. Now let's think about how science works. When physicists were studying the Big Bang, they didn't leave it to one group of scientists at one university. No, this field of study was open to many groups of scientists working out of many universities. This allows for the best theory to be put forward. If only one group of scientists at one university were allowed to take on this project, then it is far less likely that a satisfactory theory would be reached. Why? Well, because the more the merrier, as the greater number of people working on something greatly increases the probability of finding a solution. If a woman loses her diamond earring on the beach, she is more likely to find it the more help she has. Now, the study of Scripture in Protestantism is analogous to the study of science in academia. In Protestantism, doctrines and interpretations are put forward, and for the most part, the best ones win out. And just like in science, the best theories and ideas put forward are the ones that win out. They don't win out as a result of some centralized power or authority, rather the opposite. They win out based on the merits of the ideas themselves. Sure, there are some nuances in how each doctrine is fleshed out, but so too are there nuances in how each scientific theory is fleshed out. Take, for example, water baptism. The majority of Protestants agree water baptism is commanded in the New Testament, yet the mode and timing by which that is done is not fully agreed upon. Again though, just like in science, the majority of physicists agree on the Big Bang Theory, yet the nature of things like dark matter and dark energy are debated. The point here is this. Although science is not perfect, it is very good and very effective at finding correct answers to how the world works. Now, the Protestant methodology of interpreting Scripture, although also imperfect, is too very good and very effective at arriving at confident understandings of what Scripture is trying to convey. To say one needs certainty to be satisfied in their understanding of something is just entirely silly. Given Catholics and Orthodox have to use private interpretation of the data as well to decide for themselves that their church is true, they are in the same boat as us and have no leg up. But just as I don't think this is a problem for them, so too is it not a problem for Protestants. Now, the second real-world example I would like to look at to make my case would be the discipline of literature. Now, when authors write books, whether it be a geology book, a science fiction novel, the authors all have one thing in common, namely to communicate their ideas to the reader clearly. And I think as a whole, they have been pretty effective at doing so, given the plethora of books at our disposal today. If it were so difficult to communicate meaningful ideas through written text, the discipline of doing so would have been dropped a long time ago. If human authors have communicated ideas effectively for millennia, do we really think that this would be too difficult for God to do? Again here, we do not need certainty of any given author's intended meaning to arrive at with a very high degree of confidence and understanding of their work. Anyone who thinks otherwise is just being unnecessarily skeptical for the sake of argument. To be consistent, one would just have to throw their hands up in the air and say that trying to understand any literary works of the past is just a hopeless endeavor. The problem with that is, no reasonable person thinks that. Now, one might push back here and say something like, while I think you are right that we can develop a pretty solid understanding of the central messages of past written works, we can't be sure to understand all of it correctly. And to that, I would just agree. But again, this just isn't a problem. For one, it is an assumption that God is concerned with each and every one of us all having perfect theology. But again, if he did, then the Catholic and Orthodox Church are in trouble as well, because they have not given an infallible interpretation to all of Scripture. In fact, they've done very little. All the Bible needs to be successful at is relaying clearly its central messages, namely that Christ is God incarnate and that he came to a fallen world to redeem his people through his death and resurrection. And the Bible clearly has done a pretty good job at that. Hence, the uniform agreement amongst Protestants, Catholics, and Orthodox on these central points. Just because there is not uniform agreement on all things pertaining to Scripture, it does not mean we cannot have a high degree of confidence in much of it. Let's look at a specific example now. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is almost universally regarded as a story about redemption. It shows that redemption is possible for even the rottenest of people. On the other hand, when Scrooge is visited by the first ghost, it tells him that he will be visited by 3 more ghosts over the course of 3 nights. Yet, we come to find out that Scrooge was visited by all 3 ghosts over the course of just 1 night. Now, it's not clear what Charles Dickens' reason for this part of the story was, but it in no way, shape, or form undermines the clear central teaching of the book, namely that redemption is possible for anyone. Might there be those that even challenge the central teachings of Scripture? Sure, but so what? How would you respond to the person who puts forward the theory that Charles Dickens was actually a time traveler who wrote this book as an allegory for World War II? You see, the fact that there can be crappy interpretations of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol doesn't mean we can't have good ones. And the same is true for Scripture. So hopefully, using these 2 common real-world illustrations that we are all familiar with, we can now see that this argument just really doesn't hold any weight. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more content like this in the future.